To do the animation, let's go to the animations and inside of the player animation blueprint. Now inside of here, I'm actually going to click here and right click and close the tabs to the right, just so it's more clean again. And I'm going to open up the animation graph, open up the state machine that we made. And inside of here for the jumping, we need three states. So for the first one, you can drag from here and you can create a new state. And this one I'm going to call jump start. And then you can drag from here and make a new state called jump loop or jump air. And you can drag from this one and make a third state called jump end. And now for the jump end, you can take this and connect it back to the idle running. So now we have three states and we need to add the animations to them. So how this is going to work is when I jump, I have a jumping start animation. So if I click on it and I just search for jump here in my animations, you have this one called jump start unarmed. Just make sure it's the unarmed one. So click and drag this into here and connect it. And if you want to see what the animation looks like, you can always double click on it. And this is what it looks like. So we have an initial jumping animation that we are going to go through before we go to the animation where we are in the air. So let's go back here now that we have connected this. Let's go back, click on the jump air and take this one called jump air unarmed and put it here, connect it. And for the last one, let's go back the jump end. Let's take the jump end unarmed if I can find it. This one actually jump land unarmed. We can take this and connect it and go ahead and compile. Okay, so now just like before, we have to set these transition rules. So let's click on the first one. So the first one, basically when we are in the air, as we did here in the player base, if you go back, as we did here for the jump, if the player is falling, it means we are in the air, and this means we actually want to jump. So we have to go first in the event graph and code that in. So here as the player, just like what you did for the in the player base, you can drag from this and get the character movement component. And then from the character movement component, you can drag and say is falling. And if we are falling, you can right click this and promote this to a variable. And you can call this one is in air. This means we are in the jump. You can also call it is jumping if you want to. So go ahead and compile. And now inside of the animation graph, let's go back to the jump here, this transition rule. And let's take this is in air and connect it. So now we are transitioning to the jump start. If I go back here, we're transitioning to the jump start whenever we are in the air. So whenever we click this space button. So over here from the jump start to the jump air, we can double click this. And the function we want to use here is called time remaining. So if you right click and search for time remaining, and this one called time remaining ratio, just make sure it's ratio. And you can drag from this and say less than. So less than here. And then you can connect it. So what we're saying here is we want to transition from the start, a jump start animation to the jump air animation whenever the time remaining of the jump start animation is less than whatever number you plug in here. So for example, if I plug in 0.5 and I compile, and let's actually continue this and I can show you later what this is doing. So let's go back here. For the jump air here, if I click for the transition rule between the jump air and jump end, for this one, we are going to land whenever we are not in the air anymore. As you can imagine, the player is jumping and then the player is landing again on the ground. And when the player lands on the ground, we want to play this jump end animation. So when the player is not in the air anymore, so we can get this, say not boolean, and we can connect this. So when the player is not in the air anymore, we want to go ahead and play the jump end animation. Now for this one down here, just like before, we want to right click and search for time remaining ratio for the jump land. And when it is less than some number we input here, then we want to go ahead and stop the jump end animation and go back to the idle run. So for this one, I'm going to write 0.5 again and going to compile. Now we can go ahead and try it out and see what happens. So if you click on play and maximize this here, when I run and I jump, you can see I have a jump start animation and I also have a jump land animation. And you can see it more clear if I put this number to something very low, and if I go back to this one as well and put it to something very low, you can see it transitions. If I click on play and jump, it has a jump start animation and it has a jump land animation. You can see that jump land animation is more visible now, and it looks like the player is sliding on the ground when the player lands. And this is how you control it over here for the time remaining ratio. So if you click on it, the higher you put this, the quicker the animation is going to cut off. So if you put it very low, you can see the animation is not cutting off quickly and it looks like the player is sliding. However, if you put it to something very high, for example, 0.9, and you jump, you can see the player is not sliding anymore. So the jump animation will cut off a lot quicker when this is a higher number. So you just have to sit here and adjust this number as well as this number for the jump start. You just have to click on play multiple times, try to jump, see what works for you, see what looks good, and try to adjust these numbers. So I tried to play around with this, and the number that fit best for me for the jump start is 0.8. And if I go back for the jump end, it is 0.9. So that is correct. So let's click on play and see what it looks like. So now if we jump, you can see this is what it looks like. You can always adjust them a bit more if you wish to, but I think this is a good starting ground for the jump. Now what you can do as well, you can see here if I click on play and I walk around, so holding shift to walk around, and I click on jump, the animation is not playing. And this is because remember you have to transition from the walk. You don't have a transition yet. So drag from the walk and transition to the jump start. And from here, you can see this new transition rule. And just like before, just like what you did here for the idle run, you use the is in air boolean. You have to click here and use the same thing. So if you are in the air, you can transition from the walk to the jump. Now, I'm not sure if I want to transition from the crouch to the jump, but you can add that mechanic to your game. But I don't want to add it for now. I don't think I will have it like this. So you can click on play now and you can walk pressing shift. You can click on space and you can now see it transitions to the jump animation when you are walking as well.